So just as an overview, we'll be talking about family challenges, schedule changes, managing their medicines or insulin, comfort foods, which so many women look forward to. I know I do. The plate method, I'll be showing you how you could use my plate for gestational diabetes, mindful eating tips, and some patient tips as well. So how many of you hear your patients tell stories of their family saying, go ahead, indulge, you're eating for two, you need to feed the baby more? I hear this especially from some of my very overweight patients, and maybe their family is used to them overeating always, and it's part of the culture of the family. And so when they see a woman, especially when she's pregnant, when they think you need to eat extra food for that baby to grow enough, it's really concerning to them. So, you know, it's funny, they're pulled in a lot of different directions. On one hand, we have, you know, myself and our doctor and our support staff in our clinic saying, you know, you need to stick to this meal plan, eat a little bit less of this, a little bit more of this, you know. And then on the other hand, they have their family just trying to get them to eat, and it can be really challenging for them to manage. Also, you know, they may have guests from out of town who aren't aware of the diagnosis, or maybe are, you know, more traditional. There's this fear that family won't understand, embarrassment, shame, rejection, fear of disappointing the family if you eat less of their food. You know, you're not eating Aunt Penny's, you know, pecan pie, and you could be, you know, offending her. So you think, well, maybe it's better just to have the big slice you served me and polished off, even if my blood sugar is high. You can feel left out for the women who really are sticking to their meal plans. Sometimes they feel like they're not able to enjoy the holidays the same as they were before. And also this all eyes on me sort of thing. Everybody's watching you because you are, you know, the pregnant woman in the family. Just in the past few weeks, I've had a lot of discussions with patients about this. It's interesting how this just happened to come up, but with family gatherings coming up, there's been a lot of, you know, fear expressed from my patients about handling this, and some of them haven't told their families. So maybe they're diagnosed with type 2 diabetes after their last pregnancy when they had gestational diabetes the first time around, and they didn't tell their family that they have type 2 diabetes now. I have that going on. So it becomes really challenging. You know, on one hand, if you tell your family, you may have more support and they may be more understanding, but on the other hand, there's this fear of rejection, and, you know, I can't make that decision for my patient. All I can do is, you know, encourage them for whatever feels best, and, you know, to make sure the baby's getting the proper nutrition and the blood sugar is well controlled. So it puts you in a funny place. Schedule changes, of course, with all these holiday parties, the normal routine is interrupted. Blood sugar checks, medicine, and insulin, it can seem like too much to manage. Meal and snack timing might be off. Their sleep schedule may be different. Maybe they're staying up late with their family. Oftentimes exercise goes down over the holidays. They're too busy to fit in exercise, or maybe they want to do something instead. It's become boring. Family gatherings make it really difficult to stick to the meal and snack plan. And oftentimes they are overeating as well. If they're on medicine and insulin, you want to keep their diabetes supply and carry-on luggage, especially if they're flying. Have medications and snacks at your seat. I always recommend my patients travel with snacks, especially, you know, something that's going to be a quick-acting carbohydrate, and also something that is for blood sugar stabilization, like some nuts, for example. They want to make sure that their medicines and insulin are labeled with the pharmacy-provided labels, so nothing gets, you know, confiscated as they're going through security. Comfort foods, this can be difficult to manage. Many traditional dishes from a variety of cultures are very high in carbohydrates, so tamales, mashed potatoes, sweet potatoes, bread, stuffing, tortillas. You know, the list goes on. Of course, anything that tastes sweet, desserts, or lots of the drinks they're serving will be very high carbohydrate. So I try to make my patients aware of the foods they may be having that, you know, could raise their blood sugar. Of course, I'm just going to ask them, what do you usually eat during the holidays? And get an idea. If I'm not familiar with that food, then get an idea of how it's made, and you can usually determine if it's something that's high in carbohydrate or not. And then discuss the proper portion sizes and meal planning around those foods. I don't want them to feel completely left out of the meal, and I think there is room for some of these traditional dishes. You just have to be a little bit more careful with the serving size. If you're planning to have dessert at the meal, maybe you want to go a little bit less on the other carbohydrates you're eating. So we talk about a balanced meal plan, but I don't want them to be left out just eating, I don't know, salad and turkey or something and feel like they can't enjoy any of the carbohydrates. They can still have some. The plate method can be really helpful. There's many different plate methods out there. This is one that I like because they group the carbohydrates in 1/4 of the plate despite having soup on there, which is strange. But you have the fruits and the milk and yogurt and all the starches in one place. So some people like using this plate. You can also use my plate for gestational diabetes. They can plan, are they going to have fruit or dairy with this meal? What kinds of vegetables are they going to have? Is there a protein option? I usually recommend they start filling up their plate with the vegetables and the protein. Try to get, about half that plate vegetables first, and then there's going to be a little bit less room, just visually, for the grains, beans, and starchy vegetables. Of course, if they use a smaller plate, they'll naturally serve themselves a little bit less too, up to 30% based on research. So that's always a good thing to recommend. So if they can visualize a healthier plate ahead of time, maybe they won't end up with 3/4 of their plate being carbohydrates. Maybe they'll end up a little more balanced. Mindful eating. This is not necessarily a CDAPP Sweet Success thing, but I do want to mention it just for a holiday eating tip. I think it's really helpful for patients to sort of check in with how hungry they are before they start eating. There's this, all or nothing mindset when you're at the holiday table and you just want to fill up your plate with as much stuff as possible and just have it, heaping. And, if you're really not super hungry, you shouldn't fill your plate that much. Even if you are super hungry, you probably shouldn't have it, in heaping piles. But if you, check in with how hungry you are before you're eating, you're less likely to overfill your plate. If they pay attention to fullness cues, eating until they're satisfied instead of eating until they're super stuffed and it hurts to get up from the table, can help. Eat slowly, enjoy, actually chew your food. I give you an example here with a slice of cake. Focus on really enjoying what you're eating rather than just shoving in as much as possible. Yes, the holidays only come around once a year, but that doesn't mean the purpose of the holidays is just to stuff yourself silly. No, you don't feel good after the meal. Every year, we've all been doing this since we were kids. You don't feel good when you stuff yourself. Why don't you just enjoy the flavors and the textures and the traditional foods that are there and still feel good after the meal? So, that takes some practice, but I try to discuss that as much as possible. In terms of patient tips, I recommend focusing on the fun, not the food. Slow down, catch up with your loved ones, spend time outdoors, walk, play games, etc. Maintain your meal and snack schedule. This is really challenging. I do try to discuss this with my patients, especially if they have a couple of big events coming up. So, okay, what time is your holiday meal going to be at? Okay, it's at 6 o'clock. So, what are you doing earlier in the day? When are you going to have lunch? Do you have time for a snack? Have you planned for that? It's, sort of regular thing for people to just skip eating for a whole day so they can save up for a big meal, and that's really a disaster for their blood sugar. Plus, if they're pregnant, it is important that they're getting some food in their system consistently through the day to give the baby a consistent supply of nourishment. So it's not just blood sugar, it's also for the baby. So if you can bring it back towards the health of the baby, it can really help. Many patients are concerned that there's nothing they're going to be able to eat at the meal. So we recommend you can bring a healthy dish maybe. Maybe a popular carbohydrate dish is rice pilaf, and most likely it's made with white rice. You could try making it with brown rice, or you could do half white, half brown rice. You could throw in extra vegetables in there. So I try to talk to them so maybe they can work on modifying some of their traditional meals. I mean, chances are if they have gestational diabetes, it's likely that somebody else in their family has type 2 diabetes, or maybe their mom had gestational diabetes. So these recipe swaps aren't just for them, it's helpful for the whole family. And then being careful about what snacks are available ahead of time. Maybe they can bring like raw veggies with some Greek yogurt dip ahead of time, and then they have their snack built in before the mealtime. And if able to, check the nutrition facts of recipes and the carbohydrate content so they can estimate what a portion size is for them. Stay active. It can be challenging with exercise to keep it in your routine. Try to keep it planned into the schedule. Involve the family if possible. You know, this is hard if they haven't told their family what's going on, but if the family is aware and the family is aware that exercise helps, oftentimes they'll do everything they can to help you stick to your routine. It's helpful to get up from the table so you can avoid snacking on all the leftovers, you know, calling your name. And of course, I want to remind them, you know, nobody's perfect. You're not a failure if you overindulge. You're not a failure if you have high blood sugars after the meal. I would hate for them to go into the meal, overeat, and then just skip checking their blood sugar because they feel guilty. I would rather have that information so that we can work from that point at their next meal. Chances are, I mean, pregnancy is 40 weeks, so chances are they're going to have another event where they're likely to overeat. So let this serve as, you know, a learning opportunity rather than a time to, you know, chastise the patient for being quote-unquote bad. And talk to us. So it's really helpful to talk to your healthcare provider before you go into the holiday season so you can try to, you know, keep including your exercise and keep to your meal plan. We may need to adjust the medicines or insulin with the timing of holiday meals, and we can also help the patients manage their holiday stress. I think the best thing you can do as a provider is just to listen to the patients and hear what their issues are so you can work together to try to come up with some, you know, realistic solutions for them.